Let's talk about the Chiefs placing a couple of players on IR, signing a defensive tackle and a receiver to the roster from the practice squad, and filling those empty practice squad spots up with 2 new receivers. On top of that, we have to look at this league-wide crackdown on offensive tackles lining up illegally and prove why it is indeed only happening to the Chiefs, specifically Jawaan Taylor. So let's talk about it, but first, how about those? Alright, first up, offensive tackle Prince Tega Wanogho sadly got placed on IR after suffering what was reported to be a significant quad injury in the Week 3 game against the Bears, and I will say, the loss of Prince, it's a definite blow to the offensive line. Sure, he wasn't a starter, but he was the next man up as the swing tackle for KC, playing right tackle in Sunday's game when they pulled Jawaan Taylor for a bit and then moved over to the left side when Donovan Smith got injured and had to come out. That is until Prince tore his quad on that first Blaine Gabbert INT, and Smith therefore found himself back in the game with Taylor back on the right side. And I'm guessing he's out for the season if it is a serious quad tear, but if it's more minor, maybe he's back in a couple of months. I'm no doctor, but Andy Reid said he's not sure at the moment if it's a season ender or not, and said something along the lines of, we'll just have to see. With that being said though, Andy is working on it in regards to who is going to be the new backup tackle. He didn't want to get into the specifics, but I imagine it would be Lucas Niang or possibly Mike Caliendo, and then there's also the newly drafted Wanye Morris. On the subject of the offensive line, Andy is happy about how they've been doing as a whole, aside from the penalties that they've had to work through. More on that in a bit, trust me. But since we are talking about the O-line, Pete Sweeney of Arrowhead Pride noted that Patrick Mahomes has faced the lowest pressure rate of his career this season, a 25.4% rate, which is absolutely fantastic. And while it's definitely a small sample size, only 3 games, if they can clean up the penalties with Taylor specifically, it's going to be a great thing moving forward if they can all stay healthy. Next up, we got to talk about several roster moves made, featuring a couple of wide receivers, the Chiefs being wise to the ridiculous penalties being called on Jawaan Taylor, and more. But first, I gotta thank the sponsor of today's video, Chiefs Bids, who I'm proud to be partnering up with for another exclusive giveaway of this signed George Karlaftis jersey with a nice little personalized HBTC added by him on there for the community. More on this giveaway in a moment, but first, Chiefs Bids is accessible through the official Chiefs app. Just click more, then bids, and you'll then see all kinds of signed memorabilia that's being auctioned off, featuring former Chiefs legends, current Chiefs players, and even game-worn items as well that you can bid on. I've gotten a signed Kelce jersey through one of their golden ticket mystery boxes, a Chris Jones mini helmet, Jamal Charles jersey, Creed, MVS, and the list goes on, as you can see. So make sure if you haven't already to check the app that gets updated regularly for all kinds of awesome signed memorabilia to bid on. Now, as far as giveaway details, they are the same as last week. You need to head over to the Chiefs Bids private Facebook group, join the group and wait for approval if you haven't already, then comment HBT Chiefs on their featured giveaway post that you will find right here pinned to the top of the group in the featured section. I will be choosing the next winner at halftime of this week's game against the Jets, and congrats to Mike for winning the first prize of the season, a McDuffie autographed helmet, and one of you watching could be next. So make sure to head on over to the Chiefs Bids private Facebook page as soon as you're done watching this video and comment HBT Chiefs on the featured post. Alright, after the second illegal formation penalty was called on Jawaan Taylor in the Bears game just before halftime, you could see both of those plays here and how he's lined up, and be the judge for yourself if it was worth the flag or not. Again, not a straight on angle, so it's hard to tell with 100% certainty either way, but the Chiefs actually opted to start the second half with Prince Tega Wanogho at right tackle and Donovan Smith on the left initially, until Donovan got hurt and Prince had to switch sides, then tore his quad, which freaking sucks. However, in his post-game presser, Andy Reid made it clear that Jawaan Taylor did not get benched on Sunday. He mentioned that Taylor had a laceration on the inside of his mouth. However, Charles Goldman of A to Z Sports, the legend himself, reported something a little more crazy than that. Quote, "I'm told the team pulled Taylor intentionally. It wasn't just to sit him as they began to rest other starters in a blowout either. The team did so in order to have Prince Tega Wanogho align at a similar depth to see if the officials would call a penalty. Donovan Smith also set deeper than he did in the first half. Well, guess which players didn't get called for an illegal formation penalty? Neither of them. It's just more proof," says Charles Goldman, "that Taylor is being treated unfairly by NFL officiating, and it might explain why Reid and Patrick Mahomes had some choice words about it after the game."
It's wild to me. I mean, when you go back and look at the tablet, they're both in the exact same spot. I don't understand it. I watch a lot of tape. He's no deeper than any other tackle in the league. I mean, there's other guys that are even further back than he is. So he's making adjustments, and it seems like even with his adjustments, they're not good enough, I guess.
Yeah, now that I've had a chance to look at it, I'd even double down more on what I said yesterday. They've got an eye on him, and they better keep an eye on everybody else too, because it's to the point of being ridiculous. They got their point proved now out there to the world. So let's make sure we're staying consistent.
And if Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are speaking out publicly about it, it's definitely an issue of Taylor being targeted. And after this report dropped, I decided to take a look at the coach's film to check out the offensive line alignments in the first half, then the alignment on both penalties that were called near the end of the second quarter on Jawaan Taylor, one of them negating that big MVS touchdown, and then look at the alignment in the second half with Donovan on the left and Prince on the right, in which it was reported that Donovan lined up even deeper to see if he'd draw a flag. And while the coach's film angles aren't perfect, I did see some where Donovan was clearly lined up deeper than Prince and maybe even deeper than he typically looks, especially when comparing the first half. But again, it's hard to be 100% sure. However, here's what we can be sure of. The league-wide crackdown on illegal formations that was announced would be taking place after the outcry during the Chiefs and Lions game has only affected the Kansas City Chiefs, at least in regards to the offensive line. That's right, Jason Anderson of 810 Sports put out a stat about this, noting that since week 1, there have been 10 penalties called on the offense for illegal formations. 3 of those have been called on an offensive tackle that was lined up off the line of scrimmage, and all 3 were called on Jawaan Taylor. So, can anybody out there tell me how a league-wide crackdown affects only the Chiefs? Because if it's only affecting one team's offensive tackles after all, and only one tackle on the team in particular, that's far from league-wide. So, it's understandable why Mahomes and Andy are frustrated, and rightfully so. And then if you look at the entire season, there's been 17 illegal formations called, with 4 on the offensive tackles, making 3 of the 4 on Taylor. But again, since this crackdown was announced or initiated following week 1, there's only been 3 called on an offensive tackle, with all 3 being on Jawaan Taylor. Give me a break, you little bums. And that's where I want to get your thoughts on this situation. Will the NFL stop picking on Jawaan Taylor now after the Chiefs basically exposed their hypocrisy, or do you think it'll keep happening regardless? Let me know your thoughts either way in the comments down below. All right, next up, more Chiefs roster moves. We already talked about Prince going to IR, but last weekend the Chiefs also placed the injured wide receiver Richie James on IR, which means the Chiefs only had 51 spots of the 53 available on the active roster, so 2 to fill, and lo and behold, the Chiefs filled them both. First, they signed wide receiver Montrell Washington to the 53-man roster from the practice squad after a great performance from a returner standpoint in the game against the Bears. He averaged 11 yards a return and definitely looked the part out there. He's got plenty of experience as he was the Broncos' primary returner for the entirety of the 2022 season and now finds himself on the Chiefs' active roster for the time being. And with Richie James on IR, Montrell will most likely be the return guy, at least until Richie returns. The good news here about Richie James is it looks like his MCL injury is not a season ender, because Andy Reid said today that he does think Richie should be back in the mix at some point this year once he heals up. And then once Richie returns, we will see who gets the nod as the returner. It's worth noting also that Andy Reid said he's starting to work in with the offense as well, talking about Montrell Washington, but it's probably going to take some time to actually see him out there on the field, or at least that's what I would think. And either way this goes down upon Richie's return, I am excited for Montrell and hope he makes the most of his opportunity as the team's returner. I mean, to be honest, the bar is extremely low. All he's got to do is catch the ball without fumbling, and Chiefs Kingdom will be more than happy with him. And from there, the Chiefs also signed defensive tackle Matt Dickerson to the 53-man roster from the practice squad, which now brings the roster back up to 53 total. I mean, it makes sense. The Chiefs already elevated Dickerson for the first 2 weeks of the season. He had 41 defensive snaps against the Lions. Remember, that was before Chris Jones returned. He was watching in a freaking suite. And then he had 19 snaps against the Jags with Chris Jones and his return, and will more than likely stay around at least until the return of Charles Omenihu, who is currently still in the middle of his 6-game suspension. Upon Omenihu's return, though, we will see if Dickerson sticks around or not. And with Montrell Washington and Matt Dickerson no longer on the practice squad, the Chiefs then had a couple of open spots on said practice squad and reportedly just filled both of those with 2 wide receivers. That's right. Yesterday, they signed Chase Cota, who was a UDFA this past offseason, signing with the Lions, and the 6'3", 196-pound receiver had 18 targets for 111 yards and 1 TD grab in the Lions preseason games, but unfortunately got waived with an injury designation. He ran a 4.540 at the combine, and in college, he racked up 103 receptions for 1,380 yards and 9 TDs in 53 games, and the Chiefs liked enough of what they saw in him to bring him to their practice squad. And then they added another UDFA wide receiver, Daniel Arias, who played college for Colorado and then spent the offseason with the Arizona Cardinals. He's 6'4", 196 pounds, ran a 4.5240 and caught 5 passes for 76 yards during the Cardinals preseason games. And he actually made their initial 53, but was waived to make space for a waiver claim, and now he also finds himself with the Kansas City Chiefs on their practice squad. And speaking of receivers, rookie receiver Rashee Rice had a pretty good game, all things considered, against the Bears, almost scoring 2 touchdowns, was this short both times, and Patrick Mahomes complimented the rookie, saying he likes his ability to find a soft spot in zone coverage and said there is things he can improve on, but he's doing a great job so far. And he noted that Rashee is growing, getting more on the same page with Pat. He has the right attitude, and with him coming off a nice game, Andy is simply looking for consistency from Rice on a weekly basis. And I definitely am excited for Rice, whose only real issue is struggling with drops, but if he cleans those up, this man is about to have a pretty good season in theory, especially for a rookie in Andy Reid's offense. Another playmaker on the team, the one and only Travis Kelce, likes to go off script quite a bit, and on his only touchdown grab against the Bears, some behind-the-scenes footage was revealed that showed Kelce went off script per usual to find a weakness, and Mahomes jokingly said, quote, he had a corner route, but he just does whatever he wants. These guys have quite possibly the greatest off-script connection in NFL history, with Mahomes saying today, I don't know why, I just understand what he's going to do, and we are all extremely lucky to witness this duo in their prime years together here in real time with the Chiefs. Another interesting thing that was reported about Kelce is that since Sunday's game with you-know-who in attendance, his jersey sales have spiked 400%. There's been a 3x increase in Chiefs searches on the web, a 3x increase in Chiefs sales on StubHub, and they sold more tickets in a single day since the start of the season, which is wild. The Kelce Brothers podcast also peaked at like 95,000 concurrent viewers during their premiere today, and the chat was moving faster than I have ever seen, and Apple has them listed now as the #1 podcast on the platform. And on their podcast today, Kelce basically said he enjoyed his time over the weekend, is still riding the wave from all of it, but is opting to keep his personal life private and just stick to joking around with his brother and talking football on the podcast. Mahomes also shared today in his presser that he was indeed finally able to meet she who shall not be named, so some of you do not get offended, saying she's good people, but echoed Kelce's wishes, saying he wants to keep out of the personal life and just stick to football. Next up, Andy spoke to the media today to give some injury updates, saying that the only 2 who won't practice are Noah Gray, who is sick, and Nick Bolton, who is still recovering from that ankle sprain. And according to the local beat reporters, those are the only 2 who did not practice today indeed. And then on Kadarius Toney's health and him only playing 2 snaps in Sunday's game against the Bears, Andy said, quote, I just didn't want to push the toe. We started him off, then backed him off quickly. His toe, I guess, had swollen up throughout the week, but they got the swelling down and wanted to end the game on a positive note with his health. And he was out there running drills today at practice, as seen in this video. So hopefully Toney is on the rise as far as that toe is healing up. And then Mahomes' ankle wasn't brought up today, asked by the media in Andy's presser or Mahomes' presser. So there's no real update on him at the moment until the injury report comes out later today to see if he's even on there. And now that the official injury report is available, there's a long list of Chiefs names, but only 2 did not participate, as Andy Reid already talked about, Noah Gray illness and Nick Bolton ankle. However, there was a couple limited. One was Kadarius Toney with the toe, not a surprise, but the surprise was Chris Jones with a groin issue of sorts being limited. And this is unfortunate, but something I did see potentially coming with Chris Jones sitting out all of training camp, all of preseason. Week 1, you open yourself up to potentially getting injured. You're just not game ready. And this is something that Spags and company feared as well. So hopefully it's a minor groin tweak, but man, these can linger. So we got to keep an eye on that as far as Chris Jones is concerned. Then there's like a million other people on here fully participating. Mike Edwards with his bicep, Patrick Mahomes is indeed on there with his ankle listed. Then Brian Cook's elbow, Willie Gay's quad, Nick Jones with his hand, Isaiah Pacheco abdomen, Donovan Smith rib, L'Jarius Sneed knee, Jalen Watson shoulder, Justin Watson ankle, but all of those players fully participated. It's at least worth noting that the list is quite long, though. The only two limited, again, Chris Jones and Kadarius Toney. The only two that did not participate was Noah Gray and Nick Bolton. Then as far as the Jets are concerned, you have safety Tony Adams with the hamstring issue, and then offensive lineman Wes Schweitzer, concussion. I think he's in the concussion protocol. Those are the only two that didn't participate for New York. Then you have Mekhi Becton. I probably butchered that, with a knee issue going on. He was limited, as well as running back Breece Hall with a knee issue, limited. He's kind of been on the injury report all year as he comes back rehabbing and all that from the ACL surgery he had, but he's been playing. So not really concerned about Breece Hall at this point in time. However, Greg Zuerlein, the kicker, his right groin is injured in some capacity, but he fully participated, should be fine. Then defensive lineman Michael Clemens, elbow, he fully participated as well. And with all that being said, you guys got to let me know your thoughts on this injury report. Are you concerned? Does it give you a wary eye seeing Chris Jones on there? Let me know your thoughts on all that in the comments down below. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?